Hey Wobble Gang, I do hope you are doing great. My name is Ollie. Hit that subscribe button if you love a good Reddit story. All right, let's get into our first story of the day. Our first story of the day comes from Unhappy Voice 3978 in the Am I the Arsehole subreddit. And it says, Am I the a-hole if I say no to allowing my husband's daughter to come live with us full time?
I've been married to my husband for 6 years. We have 2 kids together, an 8-year-old male and a 4-year-old male. Our youngest has special needs. My husband also has a daughter who is 12 from a previous relationship. My husband's ex has had primary custody. My husband gets his stepdaughter on weekends and alternating holidays and birthdays. This past weekend, my stepdaughter asked my husband if she can come live with him full time. Her mum recently moved in with her fiancé and his kids, and there has been some friction with that from what I understand. Nothing nefarious, just a new house, new rules, and having to share a bedroom, etc. My husband didn't give her an answer either way. He said he would look into it. When he and I were discussing it, I had the following objections. My stepdaughter and our kids do not get along. It is something we have worked on for years, in and out of therapy, and it just isn't happening. My stepdaughter resents mine for existing and is cruel towards my youngest for their disabilities. There have been issues with her bullying. My oldest is very protective of his little brother and hates my stepdaughter for being mean to his brother. He has started physical altercations with her over it. The truth is that most of the time we have my stepdaughter, I make arrangements to take the boys to visit their grandparents, or my husband takes her out of the house for daddy-daughter time to avoid conflict. I cannot imagine how living together full-time would be for them. We really don't have room. We have a 4-bedroom home. Both my husband and I work from home, so we can be caretakers for my youngest. Due to the nature of his disabilities, it is really not feasible for him and my oldest to share a room. It wouldn't be safe or fair for my oldest. My stepdaughter's room is used as my work-from-home office space during the week. I arrange my vacation time and whatnot around her visitation so I can stay out of her space while she is here. I have to take very sensitive phone calls and I need a closed door when I work, so common areas are out, and my husband uses our bedroom as his home office, so that's out too. We don't currently have room in the budget to make an addition to the house or remodel non-livable spaces at the moment. My husband hears my objections and understands them, but he wants to go for it and figures that everything will eventually work out. He doesn't want his daughter to think he is abandoning her, and I feel for the girl. It would be awful for your dad to say no when you ask if you can live with him. But I have my own kids to think about too, and I just do not believe that her living here is in their best interest at all, considering their history and our current living arrangements. Does saying no to this put me in evil stepmom territory? Edit. For the people who want to make me into a horrible homewrecker to go along with being an evil stepmom, sorry to disappoint, but we did not have an affair. My husband and my stepdaughter's mum were never married. They were never in a relationship. They were friends with benefits. They bartended together, would shoot the bull, and would sometimes get drunk and have sex. My husband claims he needed beer goggles because she really isn't his type. When my stepdaughter's mum found out she was pregnant, she told my husband she was keeping it and asked if he wanted to be in the baby's life. They never lived together, except for a few weeks during the newborn stage to help out. Yes, I had my first before I married my husband. My husband and I were in a long-term relationship when I had a birth control malfunction. My husband and I discussed what we wanted to do, and we both decided we wanted to raise the child. A few days later, my husband proposed. I wanted to take time to recover from birth and wait until our kiddo was old enough to pawn him off on the grandparents for the week, so my husband and I could enjoy our wedding. We didn't get married until my oldest was 2. Edit 2. Regarding my youngest son's disabilities, my stepdaughter's bullying, and my oldest starting fights since there is a lot of projection and speculation. My youngest son has both physical and mental disabilities. He uses multiple kinds of medical and therapy equipment. My stepdaughter has shoved him out of his wheelchair. She has pinched him hard enough to leave bruises. She has hit his face when he was having trouble verbalizing. I don't give a hoot if this is normal sibling behavior. It is alarming enough to me that I feel it is best for my youngest to spend as little time as possible with her until this behavior completely stops. And I will say it has lessened quite a bit. We went through a period of it happening frequently, and it has slowed. The last incident was 2 months ago when my stepdaughter grabbed my son's wheelchair and aggressively pushed him out of her way because he was blocking the hallway. One of the times that my son started an altercation with her was because she had told my son that his brother was not a real person and that she was going to call the hospital to have him taken away so they could perform experiments to find out what it was. She went into detail about things they would do to him, like ripping his fingernails out. And yes, my son did lose his temper and hit her. My son was immediately disciplined, loss of tablet time, and we had an age-appropriate discussion about how his heart is in the right place to want to protect his little brother, but he needs to find an adult when something like that happens. This was not made up. My stepdaughter admitted she said it to my husband when he was able to sit her down and talk with her later in the day. I am not allowed to discipline or have parenting talks with my stepdaughter per biological mum's wishes. I am not welcome to be a part of my stepdaughter's therapy journey, mostly per biological mum's wishes. She does not want me involved. My husband has always been worried about rocking the boat with biological mum on these things, so I do not know the extent of what therapeutic treatment she has had. I do know she goes to therapy during the week, and my husband has gone to sessions, but it isn't something he is free to discuss with me, so I am in the dark about that. Edit 3. There's someone in the comments who claims to be my sister-in-law. They are either a troll or are mistaken. My husband is an only child. I don't have a sister-in-law. Oh my, where do I even begin with this convoluted family drama? I swear, it's like reading a soap opera, but way more intense. Let's get this straight, shall we? We've got a special needs child, a protective older sibling, a stepdaughter with some concerning behaviour, and let's not forget the husband trying to keep the boat steady when it's clearly off balance. And the worst part is, the husband is willing to just roll the dice and hope things magically solve themselves. Seriously? Is everyone just ignoring the fact that the stepdaughter has exhibited aggressive behaviour towards her disabled half-brother? I mean, that incident about pushing the kid out of a wheelchair, that's not just sibling rivalry. That's serious territory. Like, are we really suggesting cramming this chaos together under one roof and expecting some magical family harmony to materialise? It's outright absurd. And the physical space issue? Massive headache. But it doesn't stop there. Now you have to throw a guilt trip on top of it too, because dad doesn't want to seem like he's abandoning his kid. Hell, you need to balance the guilt of saying no with the actual logistical and emotional realities of this situation. Tell me I'm crazy, but in this scenario, sometimes no can be the kindest, most self-preserving word you can say. And I know I'm not the only one losing it over this. Let me know what you think down below, because right now, this sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. A Reddit user says, "Honestly, I don't really know how to rule on this. Ultimately, I just feel bad for kids in her position. Obviously, no excuse for bullying on her part. Kids whose parents get divorced and start new families, and suddenly they have no place and they're no one's priority. I have quite a few friends who are in that position. It just sucks."
A Reddit user says, "I think your husband should tell his daughter that he's not saying no, but he cannot say yes yet either, and present the reasons to her that you have presented here, which your husband agrees with. He can say this in a sensitive way. You know, I'm always here for you, and I'm only a phone call away if you need an escape. But right now, under these circumstances, you must understand why I cannot yet say yes and allow this. The space issue is a problem, even if the other things can be worked on, and I feel like you will need to be sure you can physically accommodate her in that sense so that your work does not suffer. She also needs to mend the relationship with her step-siblings and yourself, gaining mutual respect and trust. Your husband must be clear to her that this is a decision he and you both agree with, not just you. His other two children are just as important to him as she is, and while he will always be there to love and protect her, he has to grant that same love and protection to his other children. It's a sticky situation, and I feel ultimately it will need compromise on all fronts. Plus, it would be healthy for you and your husband to be able to have some sort of communication with her mother and new partner." OP responds, "I love the way you phrased this and am sharing it with my husband. Thank you so much." A Reddit user says, "Everyone sucks here, and by everyone, I mean the adults. None of the kids are to blame for your failures. This is supposedly something you've worked on in and out of therapy for years, so you feel justified giving up on your children and their half-sister ever getting along? Really? If your children were grown adults on their own, I might give you a pass for that. But the oldest child here is only 12.
On top of her being 12, she was only 4 when your first son was born, and you and her father wouldn't marry for another 2 years after. Even if you weren't her father's affair partner, given how close her parents' split had to have been, it certainly looks that way. And it's likely that her mother framed it that way, so yeah, at 12, her resentment is a little understandable. Likewise, your older son's resentment is understandable. However, none of that excuses you and your husband giving up on her. While his blasé attitude of, "it will just work out," is grossly irresponsible, he isn't wrong about how refusing will mean abandoning his daughter. You don't get to just give up on your kid because things are difficult. Moreover, given that you chose to have kids with a man who already had a child, you also don't get to just make him give up on her because it would be harder for you and your kids. She was there first and didn't choose any of this.
Just a few days later, the OP provides an update on her situation, stating,
First post.
"So, last week, my husband and I sat down together and talked about SD coming to live with us full-time and how that would work out. It was a difficult discussion because, as some Reddit users had suggested, I really pushed hard for him to think things through and figure out the obstacles. Where would he and I work? Common areas are out due to the nature of our jobs. I can't due to employer restrictions, and he does some not safe for work things which we don't want the kids to see. How are we going to handle the animosity and bullying between the kids? What consequences would be in place? We talked about what expectations would be for SD living here full-time versus just weekends. We discussed how she probably has unrealistic expectations about what the nitty-gritty life here is like. We talked through every possibility we could come up with, including out there possibilities like selling our home or separating our household and living apart for a while. We ran numbers to see how it may affect our finances. Ultimately, we agreed that the answer was not yet, with a goal for our family working towards it. We concluded that the best course of action would be to slowly adjust the amount of time she spends in our home versus a sudden custody switch. So Friday night, my husband took SD out to talk to her about everything. He explained to her that she wouldn't have her own room at our place for a couple of years, but that is something on the top of the list for home improvements once our youngest's handicap accessibility renovations are paid off. He talked to her about what expectations of living with us would be like. He explained that she would have chores and responsibilities, and most importantly, they talked about the bullying and laid down the condition that we needed to see her relationship and attitude towards her brothers improve before she can live here full-time. SD obviously wasn't thrilled about any of this, but she said okay and that she would do better with her brothers. So, Saturday, I made arrangements for my parents to watch our sons, and we invited SD's mum over so we could all sit down and figure out how SD can start to spend more time here. And that is when it fell apart. Mum is not okay with a change in custody at all. Absolutely not, was her answer. She took SD home early Saturday. My husband tried to reach out to SD on Sunday to see how she was and ask if she wanted to do their guitar lesson over Skype or something, since her mum took her home early, but she never responded. He called SD's mum and she informed him that SD had lost her phone privileges. So we don't really know what is going on with all that. Edit. For those concerned about SD's mum violating custody arrangements, please note that my husband and SD's mum do not have a formal custody arrangement. There is no court order in place. They have always just worked things out between themselves. Yes, this is a very unwise thing that they have done. Yes, consequences are happening. My husband and I will not just go get her until we understand what we legally can and cannot do in our state, and until we have copies of all pertinent legal documents to cover ourselves. While we do not suspect abuse, please know my husband is in contact with SD's mum and SD through her. He has not expressed concern for SD's safety. If at any point we feel that has changed, we will make immediate moves. Edit. It turns out SD threw her phone at her mum's face, hitting her mum and cracking the screen. Mom isn't giving it back until SD has paid off the deductible. That is why she lost phone privileges. We do have alternative forms of contact with SD at this time. A Reddit user says, "Too many assumptions in the comments. The stepdaughter was abusing the small child before the change in living arrangements. So the crying out for help justification doesn't apply. If the stepdaughter is abusing her brother, the odds are good that she's also abusing the new step-siblings and lost her phone due to something she did at home with mum. If someone was tormenting my child who was not in the position to fight back, they would not be moving into my house either. Not the a-hole."
OP responds,
She lost her phone due to something she did at home with her mom. It turns out she threw her phone at her mom's face, hitting her and cracking the screen. Her mom isn't giving it back until she has paid off the deductible. We do have alternative forms of contact with her at this time.
Dipping my toes adds, I read and commented on your first post. You took a lot of criticism about not being willing to give up your workspace, which was a requirement of your job, and for not immediately being willing to take in a teenager who enjoys bullying your special needs 4-year-old without some actual consideration of the situation. From what you said in your original post, the issues in stepdaughter's current home aren't based on abuse, but on new rules, having to share a room with new step-siblings. Those rules probably have something to do with not being nasty and bullying to them, general changes that don't make her happy. Considering her nasty bullying behavior, it's not a far stretch to imagine that any change in the household that doesn't focus on making her special is not going to go over well. She's had significant behavioral issues going on for years before her new stepdad appeared in the picture. I think those suggesting that her stepdad is abusing her and something is very wrong are losing sight of the timeline of her poor behavior versus the actual changes in the household. I suspect it's more along the lines of he's refusing to put up with her nonsense and she doesn't like it. You and your husband had a recent discussion and came up with a perfectly appropriate plan to give her a chance. It's not your fault that it blew up in your faces because of her biological mom. And for those criticizing your husband because he hasn't sent a SWAT team over to extract stepdaughter from the supposedly abusive conditions, they need to get a grip. Yes, now it is time to get attorneys involved because her biological mom is interfering with stepdaughter's ability to contact her father. It's time to get a legal custody order in place with specific visitation rights since the former arrangement, which was working, is now no longer functional. This is not your war to fight. It is your husband's. He needs to decide if he's going to require her biological mom to adhere to a fair parenting plan, going to court if necessary. This is not on you. You agreed to a plan to see if a bullying teenager could adjust her behavior to join more fully into your family. I think it's perfectly appropriate if you stand by that and let him decide what to do next. Your job is to protect your children from being victimized by their half-sister, not order or force your husband to do anything. He has a right to expect reasonable support from you for reasonable actions, but that's all.
OP responds, Thank you so very much for this reply. I think your assessment of the situation is spot on.
A Reddit user says, The original poster, you're the asshole, and so are all the other adults in this story. Stop ignoring the comments that disagree with you and own up to your inappropriate behavior. She is more than likely being abused by her mother, and likely has been abused by her mother as long as you've known her. Everyone else is right. These are signs therapists look for of abuse. I was abused by my mother, and I can promise you, it is that much harder to talk about because she's your mother, and she brought you into this world, etc. That you don't have to deal with when you accuse someone who isn't a blood relative of abuse. I spent years scared to speak out on what my mom did to me, and when I finally did, even the police didn't believe me because my mom was a woman and seemed like such a nice lady. This was said to me an hour after she choked me and tried to unalive me over me wanting to speak to my dad. When the behavior gets to a certain point, the abusive parent will limit the child's contact with the outside world. I know you said the phone was taken away for throwing it at her mom, but did the stepdaughter admit to doing that? And if so, was it while speaking on her mom's phone, likely in front of her mother? I was forced to say lots of things when I was on the phone with my dad in front of my mom. If I said something slightly off script, I'd get a look that told me I was going to get a fat lip if I kept talking. I understand you're worried about your kids, but if one of your kids was behaving this way, wouldn't you be concerned? Wouldn't you be worried about what is happening to make them act like that? Especially if you know your household has done nothing to cause this behavior. Wouldn't you be suspicious of the other parent's house?
Pretend for a moment she is your kid and feel the worry a mother would feel in this situation, because it's likely she needs a mother figure who cares. Lastly, if she isn't being abused and is going to continue going between households, for the love of God, get a custody agreement. That allows you to be an active parent in her life. If you had one years ago, biomom wouldn't have been able to keep you out of the loop. You are legally her step-parent. You have the right to be involved in parenting decisions. Bio parents each get 1 point on the voting scale, and you and her soon-to-be stepdad get half a point. You shouldn't be the main parent if she has an active mother, and you shouldn't try to replace her mom. But you do need to be an adult that she has to listen to and respect. That means you need to know what is going on in her therapy sessions if it is going to impact your children. You need to know if she's being punished and how to go about punishing her in a way that matches what she is used to, sets boundaries, but doesn't cross her bio parents' lines. Whether she is being abused or not, you and your husband need to step up, parent, and get involved. Because a situation should never get to this point when it comes to your bio children without you actively being involved in decision-making processes for the whole household.
OP responds, "Why are you copying and pasting the same comment I already replied to?"
A couple of months have passed since OP last shared their struggles with the complexities of her stepdaughter's living situation and the evolving family dynamics. Now she brings us an update on this challenging journey. And here's what she has to say. My husband has a daughter that predates our relationship. We also have 2 children of our own, one of whom is severely disabled. He and his daughter's biological mother never had a formal custody arrangement, but due to some recent drama and changes, it became apparent we needed to get something formal and court-ordered in place. So we consulted an attorney. While on that course, we discovered that my husband wasn't listed on the birth certificate. We had paternity testing done. My husband is not the biological father. He is absolutely devastated. He's spiraling. He's hurting so badly, and I can't do anything to take his pain away. We've hugged and cried together so many times this week. He's not okay. He's flip-flopping through despair and anger. The anger scares me. His knuckles are all messed up from punching something. He wouldn't talk to me about what happened. Things are falling apart at home. My husband is in no place to be a father and partner right now. I sent our oldest to my sister's, but my youngest is having a really bad week with his medical issues. I think he picks up on the stress and mood of the house. We had to go to the emergency room last night due to the increased seizure activity. When I came home, my husband was drunk. He became belligerent and demanded I have our sons tested too. He didn't even ask how our son was doing. I was so angry, but held my tongue and walked out of the room. I left a few Gatorades and some aspirin next to him after he passed out. I'm trying to get him to see a therapist. No success so far. We haven't told stepdaughter or her biological mother yet. We've already missed one of our regularly scheduled visitations with our stepdaughter, and another is coming up soon. So that is going to need to be dealt with as soon as possible. I just don't know what to do. I'm so frazzled right now. I don't know how much longer I can hold things together. I want off this ride.
MimicQ4 says, "I would try your best to be there for him while also making sure your children are not affected. This is not your fault or the children's fault. I would tell him if he can at least attempt to get better control of things, then he needs to stay somewhere else because it is negatively impacting his son. If he is not going to be there for them and take care of him, then you will. It can have lifelong effects on the kid, and it's not fair to him. Stand up for him, please."
Months later, the OP returns with a significant update regarding her husband's situation and says, "I had a couple of people asking if I would update and let you guys know how my husband is doing now that we are a couple of months out from our D-Day. Some things are better and others are a hell of a lot worse. Not long after I posted, my husband and I had the biggest, full-blown, drawn-out fight of our entire relationship. I honestly cannot even tell you how it started. It was one of those little things that just triggered, and all the stress, anger, resentment, and other negative emotions we have been feeling were just completely taken out on one another. I took the kids and left afterwards. I refused to come home until my husband got his head out of his ass and talked to someone about all of this. The silver lining to the big blowout was it did spur my husband on to start dealing with everything. He has been to his doctor, has been prescribed medication, and he has been looking for a therapist. He did a session with one but didn't particularly click with them. He's going to pursue others as our finances allow. My husband and I discussed his drunken demand for paternity testing. I was able to express how hurtful that was to me. He apologized fully and has decided he does not need to have our sons tested right now. We've discussed options for what we'll do if doubt continues to linger on my husband's part, but as of now, no testing is being done. Husband and I are both trying our best to show each other grace on this matter. The hell of a lot worse part is what is going on with stepdaughter. My husband had to take a few weeks without visitation to get his own emotions under control.
Then we had our typical weekend visit. We did not tell stepdaughter or biological mum about the test results yet, as we were still considering our options for the next move. My husband ultimately decided that he still wanted a relationship with his daughter and still wanted to pursue legal custody. The attorney we had consulted suggested that with our state's laws and the established parental relationship, we should have a claim and could likely get court-ordered partial custody, but it would be a more complicated legal case. So that's all fine and dandy, but my husband, in a very boneheaded move, did not play his cards close enough to his chest with biological mum. Several weeks ago, they had a verbal altercation. We have not been able to get in contact with biological mum, her fiancé, or stepdaughter since. We contacted the police, who told us this was a civil matter and we needed to go through the courts, so no help there. Sorry. I wish I had a happier update, or more of an update in general.
Someone says, I cannot imagine how hard this must be on all of you. Could you try reaching out to the county sheriff's office to ask for a wellness check on SD?
OPO responds, could you try reaching out to the county sheriff's office to ask for a wellness check on SD? We have attempted that. We live in a rural township and our police is the county sheriff's. They wouldn't divulge any information, so no dice.
A Reddit user says, give your husband peace of mind. Get the test done. It will be a huge burden off his back. Yes, she did a horrible thing, and you're paying for it. It's better to pay now, rather than let it fester in your mind for the rest of your life together. If you love this man, get a test done and move on.
OP Pops responds,
Give your husband peace of mind. What about my peace of mind? Of having a husband that trusts me. I told him we could have the test done, but we will be doing couples counseling along with it. A Reddit user says, I am so sorry. It just gets worse for you and your family. I hope the biological mother makes good choices and responds eventually. I'm hopeful for a good outcome. Wishing you peace and happiness. Much love.
I mean, wow, what a roller coaster. You go into it thinking, here's a story that's probably headed to some sort of resolution, and bang, reality just laughs in your face. Managing relationships is hard enough without all the extra drama, right? And the step-parent dynamic makes it like 10 times more complicated. Now stepdaughter's biomum is playing hide and seek? Are we serious right now? It's damn mental what some families have to deal with. Anyway, I hope OP and her husband figure things out soon. And if you've got your own rollercoaster tales, spill the tea down in the comments. Honestly, it's stories like this that remind us why community interaction is so essential. And hey, while you're on this emotional ride, smash that like button or whatever you feel like doing. Just stick around. I've got more wild tales lined up. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and dive into another crazy story with me. Cheers!